And the medical industry was not very tolerant for anyone who didn't toe the party line.
Mm.
And also governments weren't very tolerant and appreciative of those who didn't follow the governmental line. So for ISKCON to go against that idea that this is safe and effective, these vaccines, although it was never proven, would be quite controversial, in terms of our, especially our Indian congregation and the government. So I guess we're afraid of alienating our Indian congregation, especially those who deal in the medical industry, as well as the government would see us as a deviant cult.
So in other words, the desire for financial support and acceptance trumped was sacrificed on the altar, truth and integrity and well-being of the devotional community.
Perhaps.
Was sacrificed on the altar of financial gain and acceptance.
That undoubtedly was there. At the same time, these devotees have grown up with the faith in the system.
Right.
And therefore it seems natural that,
It seems natural from a conditioned point of view.
Yeah, of course.
But from the standpoint of the founder of Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Prabhupada, as the Acharya, he displayed time and time again that he was not overly concerned about social, more being accepted by the media, being accepted by this class or that class. His only concern was presenting unadulterated truth of Krishna Bhakti and being a via medium to the light of the Bhagavan.
And moreover, when devotees joined the movement, they were going against the grain of society.
They were, but the grain got planted into the earth and it grew into a plant, and now we're eating the fruit.
I can't comprehend why you're killing me. I don't understand why you're pulling me down. We see the same sun going up. We walk the same ground. Reminds me. Reminds me. Reminds me.
Welcome to another episode of the Eighth House Podcast. My name is Garg Zallard.
I am Buzz Ryan, otherwise known as Butter Ryan in the devotional spectrum. And our special guest is?
Prahlad Ananda Swami.
Oh my God, we're so grateful that you are here, Maharaj.
I'm grateful I could be here.
Quick heads up, everyone. We are the Eighth Element Podcast, not the Eighth House Podcast. We started out as the Eighth House, but due to trademark issues, we had to change the name. So anytime you hear us say Eighth House, it's actually the Eighth Element. I'm sure you're totally confused. So are we. Any words, Gargs?
Well, originally it was the Eighth House.
Right.
And we were sitting around in the house, and then we realized that certain elements were missing. And
there you have it. That's the esoteric explanation.
No, there's more.
Okay, go ahead.
So we figured that you were 5 elements and I was 3, and it would add up to 8. But then you were saying, since I have more girth, that I was 5 elements and you were 3. But I think we should just make it 4 and 4.
Let's just do it even Steven. And my middle name is Steven, so there you go.
It is?
Yeah.
My middle name's Charles, by the way.
Steven and Charles coming at you. All right, so we're the Eighth Element Podcast. If you hear us say Eighth House, just don't be confused. No, by the fifth episode, it's all Eighth Element.
And later we may change it to the Stevie and Chucky show.
Okay, thanks for understanding. You look effulgent like the sun today. So,
well, you must have very good vision.
I just got my glasses checked. So I'm going to give a little background. This is a last-minute thing in your busy schedule. We wanted to get you on because we very much value your input in shedding light on spiritual matters and how they intersect with, you could say, social, cultural, medical, things that people are dealing with in the real world. A quick little background on you. Born in Brooklyn, New York, 1949. I shouldn't give your age away.
It's too late.
Joined ISKCON 1968 while a student at the University of New York, Buffalo, where you... SUNY at Buffalo. Received first and second initiation from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. In 1969, receiving the name Prahlad Ananda. You became a member of the GBC in 1989, and you've served as a traveling teacher, preacher, visiting countries like Ukraine, Russia, India, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Peru, and you also taught at the Vaishnav Institute for Higher Education in Vrindavan. And key accomplishments, besides still standing and presenting the Gaudiya Siddhanta, is that you've organized daily Harinams, book distribution in Buffalo, helped open temples in Coconut Grove, Florida, Houston, Texas, serves the temple president for ISKCON Dallas and Austin, joined the Radha Damodar Traveling Party in 1975. I was also shortly part of that party. Also involved in training and developing youth and Bhakti Vriksha groups, and also you are an initiating guru in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And tell me if I missed anything. And
well, it might not be so interesting, but I'm the Sannyas minister for ISKCON.
Oh, you are?
In charge of the sannyasis.
Huh.
I'm also the chairman of the Guru Services Committee.
Uh-huh.
And I'm the chairman of the IDRD, which is the ISKCON Dispute Resolution Department.
Okay, so that definitely keeps you busy.
Because that's a combination of the Justice Ministry, the Legal Department, ISKCON Resolve, Child Protection Office, Sannyas Ministry, Guru Services Committee, Spiritual Conduct Committee, and our Investigation Committee.
How many devotees on that committee?
Oh, around 10. It's all the devotees in ISKCON who deal with adjudication.
So if you were to summarize or rarefy the realizations you've had from dealing with the tensions and conflicts that arise in a spiritual organization such as ours, and how you and your team has worked to bring resolve to those, maybe you could shed some light on your realizations in that regard.
The most fundamental principle is that before you set your goals, you should define your roles. And the main problem within ISKCON that I see is that even the most responsible services in ISKCON, the roles aren't properly defined. Therefore, when one tries to invent their own roles, one stands the chance, or probably will be, acting in such a way as that actually one is imitating someone else's role rather than actually doing one's own role properly. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that it's better to perform one's own duty, even imperfectly, than to perform someone else's duty, even perfectly. That destruction, the cause of one's own duty, is better because to follow someone else's duty is dangerous.
So you emphasize teamwork? Is that the idea?
Defining role. Like, for instance, Prabhupada in his last will explained that the managerial system that he set up should continue after his disappearance. So Prabhupada set up a managerial system by which there was a governing body commission that was supposed to more or less supervise the workings of the temple presidents. And the temple presidents were supposed to handle the accounts, more or less set up locally the systems of preaching, accountability, et cetera. That the actual responsibility for management was mainly supposed to rest within the temple's president's service. And the GBC was supposed to supervise to see that the temple presidents were properly performing their service in terms of Prabhupada's instructions. Now, after Prabhupada's disappearance, then there was an unfortunate misconception of what the new role of the guru was supposed to be. That the gurus within our society imagined that they were supposed to do what Prabhupada was doing. In other words, as Prabhupada was an acharya, and therefore when necessary, he took managerial or spiritual authorities. But Prabhupada didn't give any managerial authority to the gurus. He only gave it to the ones he appointed to manage.
Temple presidents, especially in GBC.
And GBC. But when the gurus decided that they were going to manage money and at the same time their own disciples, instead of fulfilling the role that Prabhupada gave them, namely to train their disciples to cooperate with the management, not to take it over, to utilize the resources of ISKCON to fulfill the purpose, the mission, and the vision of the local managers or the GBC, not to set up their own kingdoms within the society. Then they went directly against, or going directly against Prabhupada's instructions that we should work together cooperatively to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, not create our own missions and our own kingdoms.
So how would you define separate kingdoms?
Where whether it's a guru, Diksha guru, Shiksha guru, temple president, preacher, whatever, they set up their own, practically speaking, they become authorities within themselves. They spend the money according to maybe creating Krishna conscious projects, but not in cooperation with the actual authorities of ISKCON, nor with the idea of cooperating with other parts of ISKCON. They more or less have their own finances, their own authority structure, their own conceptions of our philosophy, and that's propagated amongst those people in that community, which may not be in harmony with even the vision or the purpose or the mission as defined by even the local temple president or by the GBC, and maybe not even in harmony with Prabhupada's instructions.
Can you give we've seen this, the little kingdoms, little fiefdoms, it's kind of, in one sense, there's almost like cults of personality that act independently, and that's natural in a sense. But as you say, when they're taking the role of doing everything as Prabhupada did, as opposed to following Prabhupada's instructions, as to whose role it is to do the managerial duties, then there's going to be conflict, and there's the kind of foundation of cooperation by the logistics of acting like this is disturbed, and in some areas causes great chaos. And in that regard, can you give an example? You don't have to name names per se, but an example of how this has wreaked havoc in maybe one or two instances that you're familiar with?
Well, we don't have to name one or two instances. We just have to observe. Well, let's put it this way. Prabhupada defined what an acharya is. An acharya who could act independently, but wouldn't act independently, because following Prabhupada, he would act in harmony with the GBC. But we've had, until recently, we around 125 new initiating gurus were approved. But before that, we had around 90 gurus who were approved and present, but we also, who were still active as Diksha gurus within our society. But we also had between almost 50 Diksha gurus who left their services under not so pleasant circumstances. So that's not acceptable, actually. As Sri Rupa Goswami said, Adau Guru Ashraya. The initiating guru is supposed to be the shelter. He's supposed to be, at least, Prabhupada said, on the platform of Nishtha. That is fixed in devotional service. That even if there is some opportunity for disturbance, such a devotee wouldn't become disturbed.
So 50 initiating gurus have fallen down. What percentage is that of the initiating gurus at that time?
Oh, close to 40%.
I mean, it's a red flag indicator right there.
So in this regard, you're, I guess you're the head of the Sannyas Ministries?
Yes, I'm the Sannyas minister, but I'm
Okay.
also the head of the Guru Services Committee, the chairman.
Okay, so what exactly do you do in that role, pertaining to this discussion that we're having right now?
Well, right now we've been mostly a police force. I've been dealing with these issues for probably 40 years now, or 30 years. But we try to set up programs for education. We have what's called the Disciple Course, which is worldwide, and which is required before one takes initiation, which is a course which explains about what the role of the disciple is, what the role of the guru should be, etc., what the problems one may counter. We also have a spiritual leadership course that we teach, which is a requirement especially for Diksha Gurus before they take up that service, which deals with the same ideas, the same knowledge of what a Diksha Guru is supposed to be, how he's supposed to act, etc., following Prabhupada's instructions. And part of that, we've introduced something about Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya, what his role is and what the role of the Guru is in relationship to him and the society, as well as another course on spiritual abuse and how to avoid it, and the role of an authority.
Isn't it that in 1977, I think it was began in the Kumbh Mela festival, but maybe before. I know that Rupanuga was there at the time, and when so many sannyasis had difficulty and had fallen down, the Prabhupada became very disgusted, and he said, "No more sannyas. You're making a mockery of the sannyasa ashram. No more sannyas." So I'd love to get your take on that in terms of the current time when there are new sannyasis being made. And how do you see that statement? Is that a statement for now and for all time, or was that just during that time?
Well, that year Prabhupada initiated 5 new sannyasis. So.
After he made that statement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, as far as sannyas goes, in terms of the record, when I became the sannyas minister, there were approximately 60 to 70 sannyasis in the movement. And there were Prabhupada, and before that, because I became the sannyas minister in 1989, so Prabhupada left in 77. So that's a good, 12 years practically, or 11 years. So there was approximately 160 to 170 sannyasis initiated. Of those, 100 had left sannyas. Some of them also left, their bodies, or a few of them went to other mats, other institutions. But, we weren't batting 50%. We were worse than 50%. Now, since I've become this, we've had a more thorough system of assessment and education, and practically engaging them in practical activities like action learning projects, sending them on missions. So we've made it, now we have around 130, 140 sannyasis. So there've been another 80 added practically. And out of all who've gone through the new process, a different process of education and assessment, there's maybe 3 who have left sannyas since then.
So what do you attribute that in the new batch of sannyasis? What do you attribute their the new batch?
Well, probably we had applicants. We used to have a system where they'd be put on a list for some years, mostly according to their age. So I'd estimate probably an equal number of devotees were put on the list who realized that it wasn't a good idea to take sannyas and left the list. And therefore, if they would have taken sannyas, there was more of a likelihood they would have left. There may be some idea, there's some credit, something about education and training. It's more difficult to become a sannyasi in our movement than to become an initiating guru. Much more difficult.
Hmm.
It's probably the most difficult service to service because there's a lot of training involved. There's a lot of assessments involved.
The percentage has been in terms of fall down from the new batch, I'll just use batch, has been significantly better than the initial, number of years.
Right.
So you were saying that people were on the list for some time, they reconsidered, but I would think that there must be other factors, and maybe you could talk about some of that you mentioned in terms of some of the education, training, and assessments.
Well, I'd say for so far, I think the greatest danger for a sannyasi is to become an initiating guru in our society.
Mm.
Because sannyasa is supposed to be detached from women and wealth. And you become an initiating guru,
Forget about it.
that's exactly, you get the opposite.
Right.
But I think it's a problem. I don't think Prabhupada ever wanted our initiating gurus to get involved with women and wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why he said the manager is to manage, and the preacher is to preach.
And how about the factor of, you have disciples around you and they're all agreeing with you, and you may start thinking that I know what I'm doing and I shouldn't have other people telling me what to do. How do you deal with a fiercely independent guru who wants to serve in Prabhupada's movement, but at the same time doesn't want to be told what to do?
Well, generally the illusory energy deals with them more than I do. More than we
Good answer.
But how do you? I mean, what?
Well, that's
how
what
do
I
you go about it? I mean, it must be an awkward conversation.
Well, it's usually if we had a conversation, it would probably be a one-way conversation. I'd speak and they wouldn't listen. They'd speak and I'd try and listen.
At least you're being honest.
But, as far as how to deal with it, we shouldn't be dealing with it. I mean, Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Instruction that if you want to become an acharya in the real sense of the term, then you should accept everything it says in our scriptures. You shouldn't pick and choose what you like and dislike. And at the same time, you should have realized that there's no difference between Krishna and his name. And you should have realized your spiritual identity. And everything you're doing, you should be a perfect instrument for Krishna. Your every word, your every thought, your every activity should be completely in harmony with spreading Krishna consciousness, giving it to others.
But what if they feel like Krishna is speaking to them in some way and it's contradicting what you might be saying or some other devotees might be saying?
We have a problem there. What do we say? Krishna is not schizophrenic. He's the same super soul in everyone's heart.
He does have many forms, though.
Yeah, they're all the same. They're all Krishna, though.
Uh-huh.
Most of the time, they don't contradict each other. We don't have one Bhagavad Gita from Mahavishnu and another from Krishna, and another one from Balaram. They usually are saying the same thing. And there's only one super soul in our heart.
Well, what happens to someone who they're losing faith in the GBC, but they still want to work within the GBC as Prabhupada desires?
Well, that's kind of a contradiction. In the sense that they've lost faith in the GBC, but they want to work with it. That's noble. But how much are they going to? How much are they actually going to work within it? First of all, if the GBC has a clear vision of what its purpose is, what its mission is, and they give a vision to others, what they're going to accomplish according to that vision, that purpose, and that mission. In other words, things should be quite simple. Prabhupada wanted us to have a sadhana every day, a daily sadhana. Chant Hare Krishna, worship the deities, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, serve the devotees, and try to make the atmosphere spiritual. That was Prabhupada's program for the morning and the evening. Now that's the GBC's business to see that that goes on.
Prabhupada deputed them as that was their main business, to travel to the temples, make sure the basic program is going on, and to inspire people to keep to that minimum standard.
So they should be doing that, and they should see others doing that. Now we have a large household community, but Maya doesn't. Maya doesn't exist only in the temple, that we have to guard the devotees in the temple because Maya might be there. Maya is an equal opportunity employer. She also exists in the houses of the householders.
Really?
So they should especially be following a program like that. Prabhupada writes that in the Bhagavad Gita, that in 8 and 13, verse 8 to 13, the different elements of knowledge. And there Prabhupada says that the householders should be non-attachment from wife, home, children, and the rest. And there Prabhupada defines what it means. He said that it's not that the householder should not have affection. He should have affection. It's normal to have affection for your wife and children. But they should sit down morning and evening and chant Hare Krishna together. Hear Srimad Bhagavatam, worship the deities, offer prasadam.
They can't binge on Netflix.
They can. We don't have cameras in everyone's house.
We do. In this house, we do. You can see we have 4 cameras.
But if they want their mind to flicker, they can binge on Netflix. That's what it's. And if their mind flickers, then Krishna consciousness flickers out the window with them.
Speaking of flickering, if I may, I want to segue into a different subject. So you were, one thing that I didn't read in your past credentials, that you were, for many years, you were the Minister of Health in ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. How long did you hold that position?
From approximately 1992 or something like that, until 2020. I guess it's 21 or 22.
So about around 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, at least a little bit more than that.
Right. And can you give us a sense of your background? Because I know you grew up in a medical family. Of your parents were very, from what I recall, very interested in different types of healing, and you imbibed that to some degree, and then took.
You studied Ayurveda as well, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I studied Ayurveda. I taught Ayurveda for 8 years at the Vrindavan Institute.
So Ayurveda, for those who don't know, is the 5,000-year-old science of life given in the Vedic literature. It's a very comprehensive, holistic system of healing.
I also was certified as a Iyengar yoga teacher.
What's that?
Yoga?
No, what's the first word?
Iyengar.
Iyengar, he was the teacher.
He's a famous,
Yoga.
probably the most famous yoga teacher in the world.
Oh, okay.
Hatha yoga.
Yes.
Okay.
Is a style of yoga.
Okay.
And yeah, your family, give a little sense of the family that you grew up in that regard.
Well, my parents were not into allopathic medicine. As a matter of fact, maybe a couple of times in my life, I saw an Ayurvedic doctor. An allopathic doctor. Only when I had a high fever, he came and gave me a penicillin shot. Other than that, we went to chiropractors. Well, I generally wasn't sick, so there was no need to go to any doctor. My mother, they appreciated vegetarianism. We had one day a week where we only ate fruit. And generally speaking, that's one thing I agreed with my mother. It was about health. She was, when she got older, she spent most of her time researching supplements. She had a cabinet full of supplements.
And you inherited that from her to some extent, yeah?
But, yes, we inherited supplements.
Did she, in her inheritance to you, were some of the supplements in your inheritance?
Yeah, we got all the supplements.
Were some of them past the expiration date?
Probably.
Yeah.
So, during the COVID era, there was a concern amongst certain members of the GBC that your particular stance on to get vaccinated, not to get vaccinated in relation to the COVID shot was perhaps controversial and perhaps, and I just remember viewing it from afar, although I had reached out to you at a certain point when you came here, but we weren't able to connect during that time. I think it was in 2021. And you were dismissed. Initially, you were dismissed from. Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is you were dismissed from your post as the health minister, and then they actually took the whole ministry away and changed it to devotee care or something of that nature.
Not quite like that.
So yeah, so please help clarify. That's it's a general understanding. I don't have the details.
Well, they were concerned that they knew my viewpoint, although I didn't express so much that I was, quote, against vaccination. I just was for logic and reasoning and for what Prabhupada said about such ideas. I explained either on the internet or personally to the GBC members what how you achieve health and how you strengthen your immune system. That Ayurveda says that the immune system, which is the system by which you can combat illness and stay healthy, depends upon things like digestion. And digestion physically, mentally, intellectually, spiritually, digestion. That if you have a good digestion, that you can assimilate the food that you eat, you can assimilate the ideas that you have, you can be protected against anxiety and all kinds of different things that disrupt the digestive system and the way the body works. So good digestion. But what interferes with that is if you take things, you accept things internally and perhaps even externally, which interfere with digestion. Now, we should follow a diet. For instance, Prabhupada said if you're an ant, you should eat like an ant. And if you're an elephant, you should eat like an elephant. But if
do that from time to time.
But if you're an ant and
No
you
comment.
eat like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if you're an ant and you eat like an elephant, or if you're an elephant you eat like an ant, then you'll have some problems. Similarly, if you're going to take something into your body, you should at least know what's the ingredients. For instance, we're supposed to be vegetarians. So we're supposed to, if we go to a store, check the label on the bottle and see if that it has any ingredients in it that will maybe be objectionable to our vows. Now, in the case of vaccinations, and specifically this COVID vaccination, whether it be the different brands, Moderna or others, and if you look at the insert, what the ingredients are, they don't tell you anything.
Well, actually, for every medication, it has an insert with contraindications. For the COVID insert, it was a large, it was like, you unfold, it was about this big, completely blank. And they endeavored to have that hidden from the public for 75 years. So, to your point, that just like every devotee, every conscious
When you say
person,
they, you're talking about the FDA.
the FDA, the
Pfizer. For example.
the pharmaceutical companies, and that was allowed by the prevailing entities, FDA such as CDC. So that was a massive red flag. Like, what conscious person who's conscious about their health? I'm talking about devotees, non-devotees, people that are conscientious people. Like you said, who goes into a store who's very conscious about their health and doesn't check the labels? Everyone who's conscientious about their health checks the labels because they know that there's bad oils, seed oils, unmentionable products. We are vegetarians, so there's no meat, fish, egg products in them. So what to speak of, monkey cell, monkey kidney virus, aborted fetal tissue, formaldehyde, propylene glycol, which is basically antifreeze. And so
Sounds healthy to me.
to willingly take something and then promote it like it's the second coming of Christ, where you don't even know what's in it, it defies, as you said, basic logic and reason. So,
Well, can I just mention something? Like devotees in general do check labels. They are very conscientious. But somehow many of them just took the vaccine without questioning. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think we grow up in a
Sorry,
society.
I hijacked your question.
you did not hijack my
Okay.
question. I do not feel violated.
I think we grow up in a society where people in general are taught to have faith in their doctors and into the system. Now that faith among certain devotees or certain people in the world was shaken, for instance, 9/11 or the assassination of JFK, but there's always generations that come afterwards, and even the generations that live through it, they forget about it. Because we have to have faith in someone, so we choose some political leader, although we get cheated all the time. This leader will save me, and then they cheat us, and the other one says they cheated you, I'll save you. So we're used to getting cheated, that's all.
Well, how much do you think fear played into it?
Oh, well, that's part of the cheating process. As one devotee went to a doctor, the doctor took his hand and said, I have bad news for you. I think you're going to die. So the devotee took the doctor's hand and said, I think you're going to die too.
So back to the clarifying the details of being the Minister of Health in ISKCON and how that was dissolved. You were explaining.
Yeah, well, they couldn't really see that I was doing anything wrong, but my viewpoint was obviously not in line with a lot of our ISKCON supporters. In other words, a lot of our ISKCON supporters get quite a bit of money from the pharmaceutical business and the medical industry. And the medical industry was not very tolerant for anyone who didn't toe the party line. And also governments weren't very tolerant and appreciative of those who didn't follow the governmental line. So for ISKCON to go against that idea that this is safe and effective, these vaccines, although it was never proven, would be quite controversial, in terms of our, especially our Indian congregation and the government. So I guess we're afraid of alienating our Indian congregation, especially those who deal in the medical industry, as well as the government would see us as a deviant cult.
So in other words, the desire for financial support and acceptance trumped was sacrificed on the altar, truth and integrity and well-being of the devotional community.
Perhaps.
Was sacrificed on the altar of financial gain and acceptance.
That undoubtedly was there. At the same time, these devotees have grown up with the faith in the system.
Right.
And therefore it seems natural that,
It seems natural from a conditioned point of view.
Yeah, of course.
But from the standpoint of the founder of Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Prabhupada, as the Acharya, he displayed time and time again that he was not overly concerned about social, more being accepted by the media, being accepted by this class or that class. His only concern was presenting unadulterated truth of Krishna Bhakti and being a via medium to the light of the Bhagavan.
And moreover, when devotees joined the movement, they were going against the grain of society.
They were, but the grain got planted into the earth and it grew into a plant, and now we're eating the fruit.
But it's interesting. So anyway, going back to your story then. So the powers that be, which would be the GBC, and was it like they decided to, what were the actions that were taken regarding your good self?
Well, there weren't very many actions. They just decided that they'd form another committee called Devotee Care Committee, and that they offered me an opportunity to participate in that committee. And I dealt with some of the members of that committee, medical doctors, and I put forward a question to them about what is the legitimacy of the PCR test.
Mm.
And that didn't go well with them.
Could you explain that?
How did they answer that?
Oh, well, they couldn't really answer it because the evidence I provided was from the World Health Organization, the CDC, and etc.
And Tony Fauci, he made a quote that like if you use the PCR test at a certain cycle, that it was not accurate.
Well, that's
or even meaningless.
He may not have said that, but CDC on the website.
I heard him say that.
Oh, okay. CDC had that on the website.
Uh-huh.
And not only that, but the founder of the PCR test many times stated that, Dr. Kerry Mullis, that it was not effective in determining kind of like a viral load.
Well, of course it couldn't be. The thing is the piece. First of all, they've never isolated a virus.
Right.
So that's viruses is something that was just theoretical. But even if they could isolate a virus, which they've never done, but what they use is a model, a computer model for what they thought the virus might be. You need for the PCR test, you need a probe to put into the test so that in order to detect something, then you run the test and you run a round of the test and see if one of those elements, one of the genes, for instance, a sequence of genes, is found in the element you're looking at. So they didn't know what first of all, they never isolated the COVID, whatever it is. And so they didn't really know what it was, but they made a computer model of what they thought it might be. Matter of fact, they made around 7 computer models. They utilize it in different PCR tests all around the world, all these created models. And then they ran the test with whatever sample they had to see if it fit into the model. And if you run it 1 time or 20 times, then it may be accurate. They may come up with whatever their created model is.
And they also, it seems, to get the results that they were looking for, it seems that there's a process of amplification of the cycles.
So that's what it is. You're amplifying.
Yeah, so they amplified it between like 35 and 40 times. And at that type of, you could say, amplification or magnification, you're going to pick up fragments of DNA from everywhere and you're going to see something.
Yeah, if you had one atom, it'll come up positive.
Right.
And therefore, a lot of people who are asymptomatic were told they had COVID. And not only that, I heard in a video that you were that you made that some devotees registered, and then they went to take the PCR test. Then they went and stood in line, and the line was so long that they gave up, took off, and then they got something in the mail saying that they had COVID.
Yeah, they tested positive.
Yeah.
Well, I know one devotee.
So just to be clear, they never got the PCR test, but they got something in the mail saying they were tested positive for COVID.
Yeah, so that's very fishy.
Very, very fishy, doctor.
Well, one devotee, we've heard, one of our sannyasis has a disciple. He was eating some prasadam and he got something stuck in his throat. So he went to the hospital in New York. And as soon as he walked into the hospital, he told them what was wrong, but they said, "You have COVID, you have to be isolated."
Yeah.
So they put him into a room, and they had a speaker in the room, a camera in the room, and he wanted to go to the bathroom. They said, "Sit down in your bed. You have COVID. You can't move."
And he came in because he had something stuck in his throat. I mean, here in Florida, there's instances of somebody almost being decapitated from a motorcycle accident, and they said the cause of death was COVID. You see that time and time again.
Well, the hospitals they had the incentive to say they had COVID because they were paid more money.
Yeah, just by saying they changed I guess the CDC had changed the requirement for writing on the affidavit of death, the cause of death. Generally, there would be one major cause of death and maybe some supplements. But they had the incentive,
Financial incentive,
to include, they were allowed to include whatever the primary first cause of death, and the second cause of death could be equally valid. So someone could come in and got shot in the head and died from a shotgun, but then they said he tested positive for COVID, so the cause of death could also be listed as COVID.
Right. Yeah. And the financial incentives were very substantial, up to between $30,000 to $100,000. I mean, there was different gradations. Like if you put the people on a ventilator, you'd get like $40,000 bonus. If they died of COVID, you'd get up to $100,000. So there was, and these are all well documented.
That varied according to
it varied, but what was the concomitant consistent factor was that there were very significant financial incentives for the hospitals to label them as COVID deaths.
Yeah,
and just for the YouTube people, we're not like saying that we are coming to any conclusions. We're just presenting the facts here.
Yeah, we're putting this out for consideration and contemplation.
For people to, critically think.
Critical thinking. Wait a second, that's a conspiracy theory. So it was very interesting during that time. I knew many.
Can I just mention one more thing?
Yes.
Along this line, because I saw the video that you made in 2021 about the PCR, and you were mentioning how the flu was suddenly almost non-existent during that time.
Yeah, it disappeared.
Oh,
it disappeared.
So
right.
It's very funny. I got to say.
Let me just finish. So, and sometimes I'll bring that up to people, and they say, "Well, that's because they were social distancing." But if they were, then why were they getting COVID?
One very, prominent member of our community that when I called you yesterday, you were speaking to this person, and I love the guy, but I brought that up to him. He said, yeah, and there was no flu deaths this year. I said, this person's name, I won't mention names. Yeah, and do you think that's natural? Do you think that, all of a sudden, 1 year out of countless years when the flu deaths are about the same every year, fluctuate by a few thousand, that they just totally disappeared and now there's massive amounts of COVID death? Do you think that's natural? He said, oh, yeah. So cognitive dissonance, because when one has a conception of what reality is, and the evidence, follow the evidence, not follow the science. The evidence dictates the science. When the evidence shows something contrary or counteropposed to our cherished beliefs, then there's this cognitive dissonance can set in.
And this is one of the reasons why some devotees might lose faith in the governing body.
There may be many reasons, but I think the result is that some devotees or some people became aware that neither of these pharmaceutical companies were actually revealed the full extent of the injuries that were caused even in the the testing phases.
Right.
They never really told about the persons who had gotten seriously injured during those phases. There wasn't, and nor was the full revelation either by the VAERS, how they registered the deaths and the injuries.
And what does VAERS stand for?
Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System.
Yeah, that's what, here in the U.S. That's what we have.
Yes.
So there was quite a bit of denial.
Uh-huh.
Because again, we can understand that the people, if you have enough money, you can buy the politicians, and the politicians will do what you want, as one very wealthy person in England said, one of the Rothschilds, if you have enough money, you don't have to worry about the government, because you have government, you own the government.
Well, Prabhupada said these type of things too. You know, Prabhupada talked about the world being managed by man-eating Rakshasas. It's there in the Bhagavatam. It's there.
Hello. You're going there, huh?
That may be, another subject matter.
Yeah, but in other words, there's a hierarchy. And the hierarchy, how that filters down is, the central money runs the world. So those who run the central banks, the Bank of International Settlements, and then they have their controllers. So it's like, and they can buy off in politicians. So
I don't know which first of all, the four Purusharthas, there's Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
Right.
So in Kali Yuga, there is no Dharma. Dharma means understand the Supreme Lord and abide by his orders. Mm. And there's no idea of moksha. People don't know that they're eternal spiritual beings. Mm. And the goal of life is to get out of the material concept of life. All we have left is artha, economic development, for so-called sense gratification. But people don't really know what real economic development is. How to protect the cow, how to have fresh air, clean water, fresh food, nice relationships with others. Mm. They've missed the whole point. Instead, they're trying to create an atmosphere of polluted water, polluted air, polluted food, polluted relationships, and have sense gratification. They can't even maintain a family anymore together.
And on top of that, also, the last leg, speaking of Dharma, we know from the Vedic literatures and from the Bhagavatam, that the last leg of religiosity is truthfulness. And there's
not a whole lot of that going on.
And that's why, for me, I find this a very integral issue, especially for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and faith in the leadership, which was, I saw it happen to so many discerning individuals, intelligent individuals during the COVID era, because they saw that the leadership of the movement, as I said, sacrificed truth, integrity, and well-being on the altar of...
Well, I wouldn't say all the leaders.
Not all of it, but in general. Like, for instance, there's 3 main ISKCON media sites, social media sites. And every one of those sites, you could not post any article or information that was contrary to the mainstream COVID narrative. So there was... And I know this for a fact because many, many devotees had this experience. There was abject censorship of alternative views. And it's not like, it's different. Like we may have films, like for instance, there's the Ritvik philosophy, and we're not going to go into a discussion about that. And I could understand, or other, like a Sahaja philosophy, somebody might be promoting this, Babaji, that Babaji. But and I can understand the ISKCON media being sensitive about, not wanting to publish things like that. But at that time, there was one narrative: you have to take the vaccine, you have to social distance. And devotees that wanted to question that, they were censored on all ISKCON media sites.
Or they couldn't go to the temples.
Well, that's true sometimes. Now,
that was true. That was true.
What about where you
finish what I said?
Yes. I mean, that was true in terms of the ISKCON media sites, not in terms of every temple. Of course, there were much more broad-minded leaders, and there are many broad-minded leaders that didn't become subservient to that narrative.
Well, even in terms of what the narration was, there were some ISKCON committees, for instance, that pushed the narrative that it was safe and effective, the vaccination. Mm-hmm. And they objected to my questioning, statistically and otherwise. So I put that to the executive committee, and they said, all right, in all fairness, that they can't publish what they're saying in the name of ISKCON, and I can't publish what I'm saying in the name of ISKCON. So there was some, truce.
Yes, but if you looked
maybe some of the censorship, though, was that they didn't want to get into the issue at all. Could that have been part of it?
They didn't want to feel
Because
that
it would
they could be
just create
sued
enmity.
medically. They didn't want to take
Oh,
a stand either way.
I don't know, sued or whatever, whatever the reason is.
But
But there was some recognition that the GBC shouldn't take sides on this issue.
although that recognition may have been there, what the front that was displayed to the public, and on the the GBT Strategic Planning Board and all the websites, and even the temple here, we recommend everybody follow the CDC guidelines, get vaccinated. So it was a weak presentation at best. So they really, what was promoted was the prevailing narrative. If you really
In general,
boil down,
but not always.
yeah.
And how is it
That-
improved from?
Oh, I don't know if it proves. I mean,
Okay,
it just went away.
it went away.
I think as long as we don't empower or put our leadership in a position where they're not so much dependent on outside revenue and outside prestige, as long as we, some devotees, because obviously, there's a whole class of devotees who didn't benefit, couldn't care less what the media thought, but there's a class of devotees who probably had more, concern either for personal benefit or for even the projects that they're overseeing. Because let's put it this way, after our zone Acharya system fell apart, although some things didn't really change, a lot of devotees lost faith because devotees were imitating Srila Prabhupada, and therefore they did not really display the qualities of a Mahabhagavat, and they proved that they weren't because they fell down, and sometimes in ways that were even you wouldn't expect an ordinary person to fall down. So therefore many devotees left the movement. And to fill that vacuum, we had the Indian community, which is, by nature pious, and they believe in God and Krishna, and they were willing to help us, and they joined our society. But they also have their interests too. They also have their professions and they also have their respectability. They came to the West. They expect to be accepted. They don't want to be seen as a cult. They want to be seen as a quote, normal citizen who's productive. And therefore we became dependent on them. And they provided very nicely to our society in many areas of the world. And therefore when this came up, things like that came up, it's a dilemma for our leadership.
And one reason why I think this is a pertinent conversation is because, like Tony Fauci, Bill Gates, they're all saying another one's coming. It is going to be worse. So I think it's pertinent because how do we deal with it in the future? How do we learn by our mistakes?
Well, an intelligent person learns by hearing. A less intelligent person learns by experience. And sometimes people who have no intelligence, they don't learn. So that we have to see. It's an individual thing. If one wants to go on believing without investigating, if one doesn't really have so much faith in Prabhupada and the words of the scripture, but is willing to follow some other authority for whatever reason, then we don't think they're really going to learn very much.
On the individual basis, yes, but what about in terms of being a GBC member, about the stance of the institution? Do you think anyone should be concerned about that right now, to plan ahead?
Well, I think we have to get many other systems in our society together before that we can have a reasonable, faith in Prabhupada and follow his instruction, understand what his instructions are. At least have a system to take that as first priority, to first try and understand what Prabhupada said, what he did, what he wanted us to do. So I think that's the first thing. As long as devotees think that Prabhupada was just an ordinary person and his instructions can be accepted or rejected without careful attention to them and understanding how they apply to us, then we'll just have one problem after another, whether it's COVID or some other problem. Women Diksha gurus, whether or not we went to the moon or where the jiva came from. We have plenty of things to argue about. Srila Prabhupada came to basically teach about three things. The fact that we're all eternal, the fact that there's a guide within our heart known as Paramatma, And his principle, he would like to guide us towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to reawakening our normal loving relationship, conscious relationship with that Supreme Person. So that's what Prabhupada came to teach. And he did it bhakti samshanat, as it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was expert at presenting Krishna consciousness to different classes of people under different circumstances to inject within them their understanding that they're eternal, that they should take shelter of the Supreme Lord within their heart, who is manifested externally as Guru, Sadhana, and Shastra, and that the goal of life is to realize one's relationship with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's known as by different names as Allah, Jehovah, the Supreme Person. That the aim of human form of life is to become conscious of God and develop love for Him. So that's what Prabhupada came to preach, and he showed more than anyone else in history, practically speaking, how to spread love of God, consciousness of God around the world in an amazing short period of time. So those who are in ISKCON, who claim to be in ISKCON, if they have faith in Srila Prabhupada, and faith in the reality of the fact that we're eternal, and that there is a guide called Paramatma, who's manifested internally in everyone's heart, and externally is appearing as Guru, Sadhana, and Shastra, and that the goal of life is to reach Krishna, there's no one in history who's explained it and demonstrated it better than Srila Prabhupada. So that's ISKCON. If one doesn't like that idea or is doubtful of it or has some other idea, that there's really no need to be in ISKCON. They should create their own movement for their own purposes.
Yeah, no, of course I agree with everything you're saying. The
Very
issue,
well said.
yeah, it's very beautiful. It's very, very succinct and very, captures the essence of what Prabhupada gave for every being, every human being on earth. I think to me the issue in this conversation is the what happened. We're looking at a period of time, and why are we looking at that? Because it reflects what could happen in the future. So, like during the COVID time, I saw a massive break in faith with many discerning devotees, individuals, in the leadership because of this censorship, this adhering to the narrative, the setting up vaccination clinics in temples. And so it was like, wait a second, I didn't join this movement to go along with the mainstream. We joined this movement to seek the truth. And we saw many leaders in the community who we want to respect and honor and serve because they embody these things that you just mentioned about who Srila Prabhupada is, who he was and who he is eternally, and what he was, the profound gift that he gave of the process of Krishna Bhakti. But if there's a disintegration of faith in the leadership due to these type of situations, you can say, yeah, there are so many of the issues you brought up before. But, looking at this time where actually, the health of devotees, as shown in the Pfizer papers here, for the book, this is the clinical trials that the pharmaceutical companies tried to hide from the public for 75 years. And it shows I can go through it. I don't think we have time now, but just harm after harm after harm, from heart disease to neurological disorders to especially issues with sterility for men and infertility for women. We're concerned about future generations of Vaishnavas and devotees being born into this movement. Yet we see the results of this vaccine, just like, for instance, in the New England Journal of Medicine, they printed the research that 83% of women that had the COVID vaccine in the first 2 trimesters miscarried. So that's catastrophic. And when you then project that onto the devotee community, it's very troubling because we want to have a healthy second, third, fourth, fifth generation. So when you saw leadership, kind of a lot going in lockstep, and it wasn't everyone, but that was the prevailing narrative. So many of our great leaders, we know their names, came out. Why taking the COVID vaccine was the best thing for me. Revered leaders, everybody. And I had conversations with many of these men. Some didn't respond to me. But so as Gargs was pointing out, in the future, how are we going to deal with this? Because, and again, we're just looking at this one issue, but it was a great kind of a travesty of faith, and that I saw a splintering of faith in people.
Well, someone is understand what role one should take, because one is spiritually advanced. You chant Hare Krishna. They know the philosophy, whatever. But that means it doesn't make them a doctor.
Right, exactly. It doesn't make them authority on the subject matter.
Right.
Yeah. And
even a doctor, we have to, a thoughtful person will examine what is their philosophy compared to ours. Mm. What is their perspective on health compared to, to ours. Now, if I got run over by a truck, I'd probably go to a hospital and get allopathic treatment. If I had a chronic disease, then I wouldn't go to a hospital to find out how to deal with it, because they can't deal with it themselves.
Right. Yeah, the third leading cause of death in America is?
It's aerotropic disease, reactions to prescribed medicine that people take.
Yeah. Third leading cause of death. So they can, as you say, they can fix something that's already broken, but they can't heal.
Yeah, it's this philosophy. There's a whole history of how current allopathic medicine, or any different types of medicine that are similar to that.
The Rockefellers around the turn of the century.
Carnegie. Yeah. So it's a business.
Right.
It's a business to make money. And you don't make money in a medical industry by healthy people. You make money when people get sick, and even if they die, you make money from their insurance, different ways.
Yeah, and one of our most revered spiritual leaders, Bhaktivedanta Swami, who's, we were all very close with him. He died as a result of the mandated medical procedure given by Dr. Anthony Fauci in hospitals. And
we don't know that for sure.
Well,
although by the preponderance of it, the evidence, it appears
the evidence suggests that he was given the protocol, which was remdesivir, and then remdesivir, which is the only drug mandated during the COVID time, which in the clinical trials, it had it was an abysmal result. They had 53%.
It was utilized in Africa.
Yeah, Ebola. In those trials, 53% of the participants had total organ failure.
Well, they rejected it as a treatment for Ebola. Anyhow, but the other thing is that Bhakti Shumar was put on a ventilator.
Yeah, well, what happens, the ventilator had about 90+% mortality rate for those who put on the ventilator, because after taking the remdesivir, this is chronicled in so many studies now, because the remdesivir, there's renal failure, which is shutting down the kidney, but also total organ failure in the clinical trials, 53% of the participants. When the organs fail, the lungs fill up with water, and that means one can't breathe, and one is put on the ventilator, and the ventilator had about a 90+% death rate of those who were put on the ventilator. So it's tragic, because his life could have been saved. Of course, everything is in Krishna's hands, and we know that. But in other words, my point is, just like in the Sri Upanishad, it states that one should understand the spiritual knowledge and material knowledge side by side, and having a complete understanding of both, one can achieve the full blessings of mortality.
Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Everyone has a responsibility to use their intelligence.
Yes.
At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna asks Arjuna, have you heard this conversation? And are you prepared to, have you accepted it? Do I have to explain it to you again? Have you used your intelligence and understood what I'm talking about? So everyone has that responsibility to use their intelligence. Prabhupada writes, blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. One should not only hear submissively, but one should get a clear understanding through submission, service, and inquiries. So we have everyone has a responsibility.
Yeah, so great point. Great point. And Prabhupada also, along those lines, what's the quote? Maybe you can. We are not interested in blind following, but independently thoughtful.
He wrote that to Karanda in 1972.
Do you know that exact quote?
We're meant to create independent persons to utilize their independently thoughtful men to rely upon Krishna.
Yes.
So how do we have these discussions with, I mean, for me, if a family member or a friend or a fellow devotee disagrees with me or is very emotional about it, I just don't push it. I don't go there.
Well, what's the sense? Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, and the verse in the 17th chapter, Anuvega karam vakyam vach satyam priya hitam chayat svarya abhyasanam chaiva vangmana tapluchite. That austerity of speech is to say things which are pleasing, which are truthful, which are beneficial, which follow the Vedic conclusion, and which don't agitate people's minds. So if someone accepts as an authority, then we can tell them as an authority what we understand. But if someone doesn't accept us as an authority, and we try to act like authority and agitate their minds, that's improper.
It's a Vedic aphorism that we should only speak palatable truths.
We can speak, depends, if someone is accepting, just like someone's giving a class. Now, the people in the class are voluntarily there. We're not forcing them to be in the class. So you can give your realizations about a subject matter. If they don't like it, they can walk out. But if you're talking to a family member or anyone, and you're acting as if you're the guru, and they're not voluntarily accepting you to listen to you, and you agitate their minds, it's an offense. First of all, they won't hear what you're saying because their minds are agitated. The other thing is that they'll, instead of actually hearing the truth, they'll become angry at you. They'll commit offenses against the person who's telling them.
Prabhupada also gives the example that someone's on the roof flying a kite or something, and they're about to fall off the roof, and you warn them, and he says, "Why are you checking me?" So sometimes it may seem urgent. So how do you deal with it when it may seem very urgent? You press a little bit and...
Well, Krishna advises us not to preach to the unfaithful. And Prabhupada says sometimes the devotees are more merciful than Krishna is. And sometimes they preach. We have to be careful we're effective. Otherwise, it may be more of a manifestation of our own false ego, trying to control people than to help them.
So I wanted to point out that I feel very inspired by some of your initial statements. Well, I feel inspired by everything you've said, really. But your initial statements were very poignant because they pointed out a very salient analysis of the challenges of ISKCON regarding misappropriation of roles and misunderstanding of roles. And just like, you had so many of the leaders saying, why I took the COVID shot was the best thing for me, and that caused a lack of faith. They shouldn't have been doing that. Do you think an apology is in order for some of the... Because sometimes we find that, just like, I've been married for a long time. And when I do something that's, inappropriate or not showing caring sensitivity with my wife, although it may take a while, I'll reflect and go, okay, I shouldn't have done that. And my wife the same way. And in any relationship with any sensitive, intelligent, caring people, there's a sense of self-reflection, self-observation, self-reflection, and humble entreaty for apology and then forgiveness on the other side. And all these things are there in emotionally mature people. We don't always see that displayed in the leadership, and I think that many devotees it would go a long way. And we do see it displayed sometimes in an institutional way, but it's not. It could probably be amplified. So in terms of this, since we were talking about this whole COVID thing, for those many, many leaders that promoted it personally to their followers and online, it was arranged by one senior disciple. He gathered many, many people and said, you guys all got to, say why this is the best thing for me. And so he had many revered gurus and leaders going, I think taking the COVID shot is the best thing for me. Do you think that an apology would be healing or helpful?
Well, I think those who have understood that they should have something to apologize for should apologize. But I think I doubt whether there's going to be an apology by those who didn't think they did anything wrong.
Yeah.
We can't demand an apology.
No, I didn't use that word demand. I said I was kind of posing the question. Do you think it would be in order?
Some of the
helpful?
things they did something wrong, they should apologize.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you said, the roles, the misunderstanding of the roles, and I think that was part of the problem.
It's still part of the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we came to the material world, because we wanted to adopt a role that's not real.
I wanted to be God, for God's sakes.
So
It ain't working.
it's not like some people didn't understand their role, and we perfectly understand our role.
Right.
The problem is mercy. We're beginning to find out what our real role is.
But I think there's in the mood of self-reflection and healing, that these things are, I think, could be encouraged more, especially in the leadership, because we want to have faith in those that are in a leadership position. And whatever, if there's a misstep or I could have done better, at least maybe not a full, but just I could have done better. We could have done this in a different way. And that there has been, that didn't happen during that whole time or hence. But I think there are lessons to be learned, and I really appreciate the service that you're doing, because I really see that you've evolved emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, most importantly, from really being committed to Prabhupada's service all these years and taking on these almost like thankless tasks that you've taken on in these different roles that you're doing. I really commend you for that. And I mean that sincerely. My whole mood here is not to try to find fault, but to, it's for the purpose of the betterment of the Krishna Consciousness mission and Prabhupada's mission in the world.
What do you mean by evolved?
In terms of
He evolved from what?
spiritual evolution. I just see kind of what I'm seeing is a person that is spiritually advanced and spiritually evolved. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your, but I'm just being honest. And it's a result of this lifelong commitment. And so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me here and for your enthusiasm to bring out the best in Prabhupada's movement.
Others may not see me in that way, but that is clearly my intention.
One devotee came to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, they're criticizing me. Prabhupada said, well, they criticize Lord Chaitanya. Mm-hmm. No, Prabhupada, you don't understand, they're criticizing. Prabhupada said, me. Prabhupada said, they criticize Lord Chaitanya. What to speak of ourselves, who are you? Who are we compared to Lord Chaitanya? Yeah. So we wanted to enter a popularity contest, and we shouldn't say anything. Mm-hmm. And if we want to represent Prabhupada and what his teachings are, some people may not be so pleased by it. Mm-hmm. To the best of our ability, we should understand we're not necessarily, more realized than anyone else in some fields. Mm-hmm. But if we have some knowledge and some message, humbly we can present it.
Mm. And how do you handle criticism that you feel is unwarranted?
Well, that's how you learn tolerance. Otherwise, how are you going to learn tolerance? Everyone would praise you all the time, said exactly what you wanted to hear. So how would you ever learn tolerance? Mm-hmm. And at the time of death, when people are praising you, what good is it going to do you? So we have to learn how to focus on, to learn love. You can learn to love people best when people don't love you. That's the real test. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you had to rely upon people loving you before you love them back, you wouldn't develop very much love.
So we can see it as an opportunity when people criticize us.
Yeah.
Bhaktivedanta, he said our friends criticize us. It's someone who criticizes us is our friend.
Yeah. Because So
the person may not be correct in the criticism.
But just like Haridas Thakur, he was brought to the prison, for the magistrate. And he was saying, you were a good Muslim, you did so well, we really respected you, we appreciated you. How is it they've become contaminated by this Hindu philosophy? So Haridas Thakur listened to it and understood this is the workings of the illusory energy. And what could he do? This is how Maya was presenting himself. So he tolerated it.
Mm.
And he blessed all the inmates. He said, let you be as you are now. Because they were all very reverential towards Haridas Thakur and showing him respect. And so he said, let be as you are now. And they all thought, well, Haridas Thakur is giving a benediction, we can stay in prison. So they became very morose. But then he said, no, you don't understand. Now you have reverence to a devotee and you're showing respect and humility. So let that be your permanent consciousness.
Mm.
That's what he was giving.
And Lord Jesus also had that same mood. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah, I know.
It's the symptom of a very spiritually advanced person.
So we have to become spiritually advanced if we want to go back to Godhead. So Krishna is giving us opportunities to learn how to be advanced. And if he didn't, then we'd be wasting our lives.
Jai.
We'd have a happy death.
I think that's a very inspiring point to close on. What do you think, Gargs?
I agree.
So,
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you
Hare
so much.
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveda Bhaktivedanta ki jai.
Jai.
Or Brunande.
We're very grateful, and we hope to see you again soon.
Good, thank you.
Can you come tomorrow?
We'll pass by here.
Living a simple